you do if your dog got into an unopened bag of chocolate chips on the counter? Or maybe your cat crawled into your kitchen, opened a cupboard door, and attacked your common household cleaner?
Or what if your pet had a seizure right in front of you? Or suddenly fell down and couldn't get up? These are all scenarios that no one likes to think about, but realistically, they could happen at any time, any place.
She's right, and that's why we decided that we wanted to educate you on the topic of pet first aid, how to care for your pet in case there's an emergency. Hello, I'm Kimberly Chandler, and welcome to City Critters.
And I'm Nicole Nichols. If your pet is ever injured, your quick action could make a life-saving difference. Of course, first aid is only the first step. The goal is to get your animal to a veterinarian as soon as possible.
But today, we've got a special guest who's going to teach you how to do everything you can to help save your pet. Peggy Rue will be with us after the break, and she's certified through the American Red Cross as a pet first aid instructor. Stay with us so you won't want to miss it.
Yes, ready? Go get it.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Welcome back to City Critters. We're here to talk about how to save your pet's life in an emergency. Joining us today is Peggy Rue, a certified pet first aid instructor through American Red Cross. Thank you for joining us, Peggy.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for being here. Now, tell us a little bit about you, how you got into this, why you got into this.
Okay, well, I've been a pet nanny for 20 years, but 2.5 years ago, I'm also a freelance writer for local publications here in town. And I was writing a story about Sparks Fire Department, who was the first fire department to get pet respirator masks on each fire engine. And they did it, the reason I love this story is because they did it with donations from their employees. They did not take any money out of the budget. Wow. And so it was really an endearing story to find out that every engine in Sparks would have 3 sizes of pet respirator masks. Well, as soon as Reno Fire Department heard about it, they did it too. So the Truckee Meadows is one of the few communities of this size in the United States where every engine has 3 sizes of pet respirator masks on board. So even though most of the firemen in this town will do mouth to snout, it's always good to have these in case it's a real disaster like the fire up at Lake Tahoe, where you've got numerous animals that you've got to resuscitate.
Wow, that's a great story.
So anyway, I said to Red Cross, I said, why aren't you teaching these classes? And they said, when can you start? And so that's how I got here, and it's been 2.5 years.
Wow. So did anything ever happen to one of your pets that sort of led you into this? Or?
I have always been a pet person. Since the time I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I was a poor kid, so I didn't go to school. I became a pet nanny 20 years ago, and I've always wanted to take care of pets. One of my cats actually got squished under my garage door. And I panicked. This was before I even knew of any of this. So I used that situation in my classes to show that this cat survived that. Wow. Just so you know, it was a happy ending. Right. But animals' bodies are so pliable that's why we can do the CPR and the chest compressions without breaking anything.
Wow.
So yes, I am just a great pet lover and felt that this was a great service that pet lovers, foster parents, people that adopt pets, and all of the dog and cat groups in this town would benefit from.
Right, and we need more people like you. I mean,
Absolutely.
You're the kind of person.
It'd be great.
It would. Okay, and now as for all of this, what you're going to teach us today, it's really important to know that this is something that we as pet owners can do upfront as soon as something happens, and it may save your life, save your pet's life rather, until he or she gets vet treatment, but it's not, a substitute for that.
Correct. I always preface my classes with, this is not a substitute for your veterinarian. Those people to me are gods. They've gone to school forever. They know everything. And so all this is this class does is teaches you to assess the situation. Wrap or splint a wound. I teach you some creative muzzling techniques and how to transport. And also, because the emergency clinic here in town is so overwhelmed with emergencies, they want people to be able to determine, is this an emergency that I have to go to the clinic now, or can I wait till tomorrow to go to my regular doctor? Because that clinic is overrun with broken toenails and ear infections, and they're there for emergencies. And that's what we should probably, let them take care of. So if you can calm the situation, become the alpha dog or cat, take care of things, and determine when you should go.
Yeah. So let's begin. Are there any specific things we should have as pet owners on hand in case there's an emergency?
Well, everybody should have a pet first aid kit specific to your pet. Now, you've got Italian Greyhound. I have a friend that has a Great Dane. So basically, those first aid kits are going to be a little different.
Right, sure.
So have a first aid kit on hand for your human family, one for the furry kids, and then customize it for the size of your pet. And that includes different size splints, like these great stir stick splints.
Oh.
I mean, this would be for a Great Dane.
That's just a paint stir
It's
stick.
the paint stir stick from one of our local great splint companies. I go in there all the time and they go, so you're painting again? I go, yeah, a lot of painting. Same with the toilet paper tube. This would be great to splint your little guy's tail. If it got cut, you could splint it, tape it on both ends, get him to the doctor. But a big dog, a paper towel tube would be better. Little cats, great little splint, a spoon. You just put their little paw in it, tape it up, snap it off where you need to, get them to the vet.
Wow. Wow.
So the other thing too is just so pet parents know, because sometimes you panic when you're going to do this. Pets have a real high tolerance for pain, much higher tolerance than we do. So if all you've got is duct tape or packing tape to wrap a wound, do it. Because when you get them to the vet, you can have them sedated and the doctor can take it off with adhesive remover. So you're not going to hurt them, but you're stabilizing them, which is what the goal is.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does. And now, if something happens, I mean, that could be something like you were saying, broken tail, broken leg. What are some basic techniques that we can do to help save a life? I mean, what's a common emergency, or what are some things that you could think of off the top of your head as far as teaching?
First thing that we have to do, and it's always hard because we think, well, it's our pet, he's not going to bite me. But the two things that dogs or cats do really well is they bleed, because their circulation is so good. And when they're bleeding, you want to treat them, and when you go to treat them, they may bite. And biting is not that they're being mean, it's their first line of defense. So the best thing to do is learn to muzzle with emergency, quick decisions. This is a Halti, and a lot of dogs that might walk on Haltis know that when this is put on their face, they go into a mindset and you become the pack leader. Another thing, let me just steal this right off of you. If you are in an emergency and you have got to muzzle him, you use a scarf, tie it here, and tie it around their neck.
What a great idea. So
Keeps
anything.
anything.
Really.
If a lot of times they'll come home from the groomer with a scarf, use a scarf. If you've got a squishy nose dog or a cat, a knee-high nylon is really good because you can put it over their face. Of course, Carrot Top's not going to want to do this, but you put it over their face. They can still see you, they can still breathe, but they're going to be so distracted that you're going to be able to treat them without any injury to yourself.
So you even cover their eyes with that?
Oh yeah, the whole head goes right over the head. Okay. Another thing is just, like the scarf, just gauze. You put it around their nose, tie it underneath and around their neck.
So these kind of things are for our safety, so we don't get bit or hurt, but
Right.
also for their safety, so they're not
Right.
flailing around.
You're going to get their attention, you're going to distract them, and then you're going to treat the wound and decide. But if they are unconscious, you've got to make sure, if you can remember the ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. So you want to check their airway. If it looks like their tongue is starting to go down their throat, you need to get it out, because they can either choke on it or suffocate. So you need to pull it out and then maybe muzzle to keep the tongue out. Okay. The breathing, are they breathing? Check their lungs. A good way to tell if their circulation is good is the color of their gum. It has to be some sort of pink. If you've got anything other than pink, you've got an internal issue going on, and it's serious. And usually people don't even look at the gums. If you have a dog with black gums, then you want to go to the eye membrane and look in there. Then you can tell what the circulation is, because they're both going to be pink, and if they're anything other than pink, you've got a problem.
Now, you're talking a lot about dogs. I mean, obviously you're showing us about dogs, but is the same true for cats?
It is. Cats are always going to be a little bit more high maintenance. They need different.
Don't I know it.
So do I. They need different eye medications. They are stinkers when you're trying to muzzle them. Try to pull one of their tongues out of their mouth when you're trying. So that's why I teach both cat and dog classes, because there are differences. When Red Cross first came up with this idea, they did a combo class, but there were so many people that said, I don't want to know about cats, or I don't want to know about dogs. So we separated it. And we also have the books that come with a DVD, and those are always available down at Red Cross. Or when you take a class, you can get one.
Wow, very good. Well, I'll tell you what, Peggy, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to actually come on back and learn some more techniques. We're going to actually get hands-on with these animals and see what we can help you do as far as saving your pet's life. Stay with us.
This financial advisor is being accused of committing one of the largest investment frauds in the history of the United States.
I guess we're not going to Aspen. That's fine. You see, I like tennis balls. He likes insider trading. So he's going to jail and I'm going to a shelter. And no, they're not the same thing. Shelters are for good pets that want to be adopted. Jails are for criminals. I've done nothing. Uh-oh. Okay, I stole a cheeseburger once on my dog.
Welcome back to City Critters. We've been talking here with Peggy Rue, and she is a certified pet first aid instructor. Earlier, we talked a lot about basic supplies to keep on hand for your pet's safety if something happens, how to handle the emergency. But that's not the only thing we need to be concerned about as far as basic care, correct?
Yeah, and so we talked about if your pet gets injured, things we could use for a splint, household items, or things we could use to wrap a wound to stop bleeding.
How to muzzle them.
How to muzzle them. So, back to our introduction when Kimberly was talking about what happens if your pet gets into some sort of household poison, or even something that we may not think is toxic, like a bag of chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips are one of the biggest enemies to a dog or a cat, if you've got a cat that's going to get into them. But household poisonings, there are more situations like that in the United States than pretty much anything. And that's because we don't think about keeping cleaning products up or poisons up and letting the dogs and cats have the lower part of the house or the garage. Fertilizers in the yard are, regular fertilizers are okay. It's the natural fertilizers that are toxic to your pet.
Really?
They're good for the environment, but they attract your pet. So you have to be careful with what you use in your yard. You've got to think, am I going to be kind to the environment? Am I going to be kind to my pet? Which way to go? If you do have some sort of ingestion of chocolate chips or something, you can use peroxide. If you call your SPCA poison control hotline, they can tell you what to do. And those are the numbers that I provide in the class. But you don't want to use peroxide if it's something caustic or toxic, because it's a bubbly fluid, and if it got into something like Drano or Decon and it comes back up, it could rip.
So you say use hydrogen peroxide. What, I pour it over my cat?
You would induce vomiting. And what you want to use is a teaspoon per 10 pounds of body weight. And this little cap is the only thing universal in the world that I found. It's even the same size on the big bottles at Costco. So it's about a teaspoon. Okay. So if you do need to measure, you can measure with the cap.
You just pour it down?
Not down, you want to pour it in the side, because you don't want it to go down their windpipe. But if it's an emergency and you don't have time to measure, you won't OD an animal on it. It will just bubble back up.
Okay.
If it's chocolate chips, if it's truffles, the thing about chocolate nowadays is that most of it is a lot of fillers, like brownie mix, hot chocolate, candy bars aren't even all chocolate anymore. So if it is a high concentration of chocolate, then you need to get them into the doctor. I had a dog that ate something chocolate every Christmas and she lived to be 16. So it really depends on their system, on what they can take. But yeah, peroxide is used to induce vomiting only if you think that it's going to be necessary. And again, you need to learn when it's necessary, when you should use it, when you shouldn't use it.
Right. Now let me ask you this. So you said to put it in the corner of their mouth, kind of make them swallow it.
Right.
If they try to spit it up, can you assume that they probably didn't get anything in their mouth?
They probably won't spit it up, because if you put it in the side of their mouth in a pocket, you use a syringe or just pour it slowly, it's going to go down their throat. And you hold their head up, let it go down. But the reason I have these medication bottles here is there are so many times where in my 20 years of pet nanny business, people leave their medications on the side of their bedside table. And if you touch it, then your dog or cat thinks they should have it because it's got your scent on it.
And it
So
makes a really great sound.
it makes a great sound until it opens up. So if people could learn to put medications in a proper place, then your animal would be safe. But even a natural thyroid pill has enough concentrated fish oil in it to kill a cat. So, I know it's handy to have them on the side of your bed, but it's not good for your pet.
Right. Right.
So.
And now that's all great information. And I know earlier you mentioned the first aid kits. Let's take, for example, traveling. My boyfriend and I, we go camping with our dogs all the time. We need to be prepared as to if something could happen. What do you recommend for that? Packing a separate bag, or how do we handle a situation like that if we're in the wilderness or out somewhere and we can't get to a vet quickly?
Well, that's the one push that American Red Cross tries, is preparedness. And it is human nature not to be prepared. So the more people we can get to be prepared, the better. But you should always have a first aid kit for yourself, a first aid kit for your pets. You should have like an emergency kit with food, blanket, toys, chewies, splints, anything that you may need if you are stuck somewhere and need to take care of your pet and you're away. Right away. If you are traveling, make sure where the vets are and where the pet-friendly motels are, where you're going. I have a client that I've watched their dogs for years, but half the year they take the dogs with them, and they now have a vet in Boulder City and one in New Mexico because they've had to have one. So again, being prepared. It's just human nature to fight it, but it's really best if we can, do it.
So what about in the case of a natural disaster, like a hurricane, an earthquake? I just came here from California, and we got a lot of earthquakes going on. And how do we help our pets then?
Well, this is the interesting thing. After Hurricane Katrina is when this situation, these classes really kicked into gear. Because when people are evacuated to Red Cross facilities or command posts, you cannot bring your pet. And so a lot of people at Hurricane Katrina would not leave their homes, or they left their pets and just abandoned them. So the best thing to do is find out where pet-friendly motels are, wherever. If you're the only one that knows where the pet-friendly motel is in Fernley, then you get in there first. Now, there is a national law that if we do have an evacuation of some sort, motels have to take you with your pet. But they can charge you an extra fee, but they cannot refuse you. So at least that is good. The best part about Washoe County is Red Cross will set up a command post for people. Washoe County sets up a command post for pets.
Wonderful.
And the greatest thing about Washoe County is you go in, get registered now. Make sure your pet is chipped. Go in and get a picture taken with your pet. Get all your information put in there. They give you a little card, and then you can keep that in your wallet. But also, when the disaster is over, you're the only one that gets to retrieve your pet from the command post. And it is amazing. We've done a lot of mock evacuations, and they've got it down to a science. So the way Nevada Humane Society and Animal Control with Washoe County work together is just amazing. So the best thing to be is prepared.
Right. And there is something else I want to touch on quickly, which we didn't get to, but we were talking about before we started the show. You've got 3 items here: Pedialyte, chicken broth, and Pam. Yeah. And I want to talk about those because that's something that Pam and chicken broth probably everybody has. Pedialyte maybe only if you have kids, but what's the importance of these 3 particular items right here?
Okay, Pedialyte and chicken broth. You can also use Gatorade. Has electrolytes in it. Wow. Okay. These are great if your pet gets heat stroke or frostbite, or they've had a seizure and you need to get them hydrated. These both, they'll drink them because it's not just water. Right. So you want something that tastes good. And this has the electrolytes in it, this tastes good. Right. And some people say, oh, well, I want to get the one that's really low sodium. And it's like, it's an emergency, just give it to them because they'll drink and then they'll get thirsty and they'll drink some more. The Pam is one of my secret weapons. I usually only share in my classes, but you guys go hiking? Occasionally. Okay, well, you know, camping, and you come back to the campsite and everybody wants to go to bed and your dogs have sap in their paws. If you have regular old Pam, you spray it on their paws and you pull it out of their fur without pulling the fur out. Wow. Plus, it moisturizes their pads and it's not toxic, so they can help you lick it out. So this is, and right now is the time that sap starts dripping through winter. And so, you know, you can get the little cans, keep in your first aid kit, but it is amazing. I had a lady in my cat first aid class whose cat got out of the garage right after her street was slurry sealed. And the cat came in with asphalt. Oh. And pulled it out without pain.
Wow.
So it's just a non-toxic household, you know, magic bullet.
And it's great for cooking.
And it's great for cooking.
That is probably the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I mean, realistically, that is the last thing I would have ever expected to hear within Pet First Aid, but that is great to know because that is so easy, so handy, and that's something that anybody can do.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about how you could get more involved in Pet First Aid.
As an emergency responder, I've seen how important it is for pet owners to have a Go Kit. In case you have to evacuate during an emergency, your Go Kit should include an airline-approved carrier, medical records, medications, ID tags, and leash, and enough food and water for several days. And we strongly encourage you to market your pet. Remember, make a plan, assemble a kit, stay informed, be ready. For more information, visit ReadyWashoe.com.
Welcome back to City Critters. We've been talking with Peggy Rue, and she is a Pet First Aid instructor. And she's been teaching us all about the different tools we can keep on hand in the household to save our pet's life and different things that we can do to treat our pet in case of an emergency.
Peggy, what if somebody wanted to learn more about Pet First Aid? How would they get involved? What would you recommend?
Well, you can go to the American Red Cross Northern Nevada chapter website. They can call me, they can email me directly. My classes are ongoing. I will even go to groups that want to host me. I will just have my supplies and go to them. If they can get a group of people together, we can do it in the living room, we can do it in an office. All I need is a place to set up my tools and my little TV and we're good to go. But the classes include, you know, most of us try to save a little bit of money like trimming toenails, but what if you get a bleeder? I have several home remedies. If you don't have the quick stop or the styptic pencil on hand that will help you get a bleeder to stop. There is so much more in the classes that you can learn, and there's even more in the book and the DVD that I always tell my students, you're going to be exhausted when you leave. And with my classes, whenever you've taken a class from me, you are always welcome to come back to my class for free for a brush up. And I've finally had people after 2 years starting to come back and go, oh God, I can't remember, or I have a new dog, what do I do, or now I have a cat. So, you know, if they can call me, email me, I will tell you when the classes are. Usually we hold them right here at Nevada Humane Society classrooms, and like I said, I'll go anywhere.
Awesome. That's very great to hear, and I'm so glad to learn all this. I know I probably don't speak for just myself, but I know I learned a lot today as far as how to care for your pet. They're our kids, they're a family. That's how we all treat them.
Right.
So why not keep these kind of things on hand and know these great tips for taking care of your pet. Thank you, Peggy, so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.